edition of Rise and Shine. Today's subject, we're going to talk about why is there such a big exodus of teachers from our education system. We're going to be right back after this brief commercial.
A patient in tears said out of $12,000 only got $2,000. Now some people may feel you don't deserve equality, the Frederick Douglass effect. I said, as your chiropractor, when you sign your settlement from the insurance company, if I make more money than you, the victim, ask your lawyer to negotiate with me. I promise to be fair. Now you were hurt and we got you better. The last thing I want to do is make you feel like you're a victim twice. Car smash, hurt, call me now, 476-PAIN, Dr. James Gordon, D.C.
It takes less than 1 minute to find out if you may have prediabetes. You can do it here. But you probably won't. You're busy. Kids, work, show coming back in 48 seconds. So let's do this now. Hold up one finger if you're a man, women, 0. 3 more fingers if you're over 60, 2 over 50, 1 over 40. If you're not sure, keep in mind you're sitting on a couch right now, so 1 more finger if you're not very active. 1 finger if yes, 0 if no. 1 yes, 0 no. Next, find the body type that looks most like you and hold up that many fingers while I look around awkwardly. And that's it. If you're holding up 5 fingers or more, you probably have prediabetes. Sorry to be so blunt, but hey, you're busy. Just go to the site.
All right, welcome back to Rise and Shine. And today, as we start the program, Doc, would you grace us with the word of inspiration?
Yes, Brother, I see. Heavenly Father, thank you for your many blessings. We ask that you please let those in the sound of our voice and that they can see us to be blessed with this show and to give them some new insights or some new direction to speak on these different subjects that we're bringing up. Not that we're trying to pull people in one direction or the other, but that we're just trying to share information to help inspire conversation. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, Brother Hasib, today we seem to know we seem to always have a shortage of teachers, 1 or 2 here or there. But you say recently there seems to be a greater shortage.
Yeah, there's especially this school term here, all over the country, not just in Alabama, but Alabama as well. All over the country, they say we've had over 600,000 teachers that left the system. And I did see a recent a program on the news there of them interviewing some of the teachers as to why did they leave the system. And you know, we used to always think it was because of money. But there's a lot of different things that's going on in our education system that we as parents are not really aware of that's affecting our children.
Well, I think, some of the things that come to mind is the different adaptations. I say critical race theory comes to mind, and I think some teachers are for teaching, some teachers are against teaching, and some teachers just resent being made to teach things other than the basic math, reading, writing, arithmetic. So arithmetic and math are 2 of the same, huh?
Yeah, reading, writing, arithmetic.
Yeah. So the 3 R's.
3 R's, that's what they used to call it.
But then there's some teachers that seem to be fearful of COVID. I do remember in Alabama that some teachers at 20 years of service just had to quit because they were just terrified of going back into the classroom due to the COVID. And teachers and police officers, I think of public servants, there's a lot of hidden stress in those professions that people don't really see.
Right. Yeah. And I'm finding that in this interview that I watched about why the teachers was leaving the system, some of them loved what they were doing, but they say because of the stress and the pressures that put on them that they just couldn't take it anymore. It says just too much pressure, too much thing, and I guess it was really highlighted during the time that we went through this COVID there, that it said it was even, you thought it would be less on the teachers, but it was actually more burden that was put on.
COVID, you know, I hate that we lost even one life, but I think COVID was a awakening.
Awakening, yeah.
Because it took you out of your the rat
The
race
norm,
in America
right, yeah.
was so intense and so great that you can't pause and reflect.
Right.
There's no time to pause and reflect, because when you pause and reflect, you say, well, wait a minute, you know, I'm at peace now. My health is better. I'm at peace. I can breathe better. I can relax. I can just, everything is better. What am I doing differently?
Right.
I took a quarantine. I took a pause
Right.
from this that I was doing, and now I realize how much better I am. So I'm going to have to find a job that sort of complements that activity.
Right. Well, you're right. And you know, if we had more concern about each other as a person, first of all, I think we could really make things work better. If the parent, because nowadays the norm is just, hey, you just drop your child off to school, and we're talking about basically where the foundation of the child is being laid. We should really have a concern. And you know, and some people do, and they take their children, sadly to say, out of public school and put them in a school that they got better control over, which I think all schools that the parents should have better control over.
Well, and I think that what you just hit the nail on the head, that there's some people, the school system has to wake up. The public school system, in their antiquated ways, need to wake up and understand that we need to give the parents control. We need to be competitive, or we're going to lose. I have been a long supporter of teachers' unions in the public school system, but I'm not supportive of them browbeating into the students certain things that they feel are important. I think the parents have to be brought to that conversation, and everybody has to decide what's important and try to grow this little human as a productive adult and productive member of society. And too many times the school system dictates, and the parents feel at a loss. That's why these new laws are coming on the books to let your taxpayer dollars move with the student, because if your taxpayer dollars are tied to each student in that public school, and that public school has lost half the students, then it's saying that the public school doesn't need the full taxpayer dollars. Let's let half those dollars go to a private situation or a charter situation, which I don't like the dual system. I think we can do it with one system, but the system has to be respectful of the parents.
Right. Well, I agree with you. And you know, that was one of the things they were saying in the interview, that most of the time that we come up with problems in education, we want to just throw money at it. We think money will solve all of the problem, and of course you need money and economics in order to be able to run any business, but a lot of times the problem is greater than the money that it is. It may not even be dealing with the economics so much of it. Is that maybe the quality of the teachers that you're hiring, or the responsibility that you put on them, or the things that you demand that they teach. You know, like for example, I know down in Florida, which has been in the news recently, the governor there, they got this different stuff that they can't say in the school system there that seem to be in the news. And most people know what I'm talking about, but it's things like that, you know.
Well, the new pronoun movement, you can't say his and her, you gotta say it, or you gotta, I'm non-gender, and if you're a teacher, you gotta sort of compete with that. That's a little bit tricky. I understand we want to be inclusive, but at the same time, in America, too many times we take in the few and have the few to protect the few and to address this concern of the few. We've made it the policy of the many, and we sort of have to do that thing where we can respect both sides. So if I want to use he, him, and her, and somebody rather be referred to as it, just realize, okay, in this setting where the majority is he and her, I'll accept that. And then when you go to a smaller group, to where you control it, your family, your church, or whatever, and if you want to say, well, here we want to do non-pronoun, then do non-pronoun in that setting. But to try to change a whole country just based on him and her, to use it just because of 1 million people or 20 million people or 50 million people. This country is 350 million people to plus or minus 50 million due to the people who don't sort of called
Well,
citizens.
you have to change the whole language.
Pretty much.
And there's some languages that I know
For
that
50
doesn't
million?
have that doesn't have that in it.
All the language,
masculine,
all the
feminine.
languages, masculine, similar, masculine, and feminine, and change the spelling of the words
Right, yeah.
except for English.
Yeah, right.
The Spanish language, the French language, all those languages, which is the majority languages of the world, have that. And so if you got 350 million people in the world, you can't change everything for 50 million people.
Right.
The 50 million need to accept that the ways that we speak is going to be for the 300 million, but I got a right to say I'd rather not be referred to that way when I talk to my personal friends or my personal circle, if you would.
Right.
But to make that for the whole world is a little bit you're not really, you say the 50 million say I'm not being respected by the 300 million, but the 300 million not being respected when you make them change the way they grew up with him and her, if you will. We're trying to use the pronouns. We want to make the pronoun person, non-pronoun person user feel comfortable and accepted, but we can't change day to night and night to day to do that. We can't change things that are sort of standard to make that happen. We can say we will, we can pretend we will, but that causes a lot of stress in itself. If you're a teacher, you say, well, you can't refer to the guys as him or her. You got to sort of use gender neutral terms. And you grew up, you're a 50-year-old teacher, or a 60-year-old teacher, or a 30-year-old teacher.
Right.
You sort of shuts you down.
Well, it does that, and I think we've just gotten a lot of confusion as far as for the child whose responsibility is, and I think we got to get that back in its proper place. The first responsibility for the child is his parents. But now it seems like a lot of that responsibility has been minimized. That we are shifting that parents or some other people are taking on our parental responsibility, and they feel like they have to do it. And I think because of all this confusion, you got the teacher trying to do the parent job. You got the parents not doing this job. You got the preacher trying to do the teacher's job, and it's just a ball of confusion. And if we all would get into the area that we're supposed to be into, the teacher don't need to be the preacher, because people make choices on what their religious affiliation. But when you start mixing all this in and putting all this on the teacher, then it just be confusion, and it's kind of easy to say. Well, they say, well, I need to get out of this regardless of how much money I make, and we know it's already a profession that you don't make the greatest amount of money. You got to have more of a love for it than you got economics. If you just go into it for the money, you lose every time.
I don't think people ever went to teaching in the past for the money. It was
Right.
always a love of trying to help the community. Same with being a police officer and whatnot. There's certain jobs you never went to for the money. You went to for the love of trying to help others, of the love of doing that task, love of teaching, if you will. But it was never a place to go to say that it was never the wealthiest or the best place to go to get most financially secure. Let's take a break, Brother Hasib. And,
Yes, I was just going to suggest that, and we'll be right back.
Princess Creative Productions can provide affordable and professional video services for small to mid-sized businesses. Our in-studio virtual set shoots start as low as $200. Let our expert get to work on your next video project. Call 251-421-4490 to book your next shoot.
Each year, hurricanes and major flooding threaten cities, towns, and rural homes across the Gulf states. So chances are there will be more storms and floods near here again. And between school, sports, and social lives, chances are you won't be with your kids when it happens. Will they know what to do? Ready.gov/kids has all the educational tools and information to make the conversation easy. When the time comes, chances are they'll feel prepared, not scared. So talk with your family today.
A patient in tears said out of $12,000 only got $2,000. Now some people may feel you don't deserve equality, the Frederick Douglass effect. I said, as your chiropractor, when you sign your settlement from the insurance company, if I make more money than you, the victim, ask your lawyer to negotiate with me. I promise to be fair. Now, you were hurt and we got you better. The last thing I want to do is make you feel like you're a victim twice. Car smash, hurt, call me now, 476-PAIN, Dr. James Gordon, D.C.
All right, welcome back to Rise and Shine, where we're talking about our teachers in the education system and what are we going to have to do to keep them, to maintain them. And now, because we got a deficiency in teachers, how do we bring teachers back to the profession of teaching our children?
You know, well, I think, Brother Asif, that the COVID quarantine helped people to see and realize how important it is for mental health and peace of mind and having time off. And I'd like to even say that you and I made some changes, probably even a little bit before COVID, but I noticed I try to work, try to take Fridays off, try to work Monday through Thursday, and that has afforded me extra free time to do some of the things I want to do, or just to be lazy if I choose to be. Mm-hmm. But having the rat race of running 5 days a week, and there were times in the past when I worked 6 days a week, having to do a half a day Saturday, and you look back and it's like, well, what was that about? Because even if I made twice the money, if you make $1 million and spend $800,000 or $900,000 to get there, what good was that?
Yeah, right.
You basically just swapping hands. You're basically banking money. You're out there making it happen, but what good is it if you're just passing money through your hands? And you got extra employees, extra people, extra buildings, which is extra overhead at the end of the day. When I look at your situation, your office, you decide, okay, I got this many rooms in my office. If I can make it with a smaller office, would that be less stressful for me?
Right, exactly. But in the school system right now, and that's one of the things that they're debating now, is whether or not, in some systems are being forced to, because they just don't have enough teachers, to a 4-day week, a school week there. And the other thing that this problem is causing is that the classroom size now, we worked for years and years to get smaller classroom, and now all of a sudden they overnight having to be doubled again. So what?
Well, and I didn't mean to cut you, but one of the beautiful things you were saying, at one of the previous shows about Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, about wake up all your teachers, time teaching their way. Many of our policies, many of our 5-day this and this, that, and the other were created as a result of not having a great electrical grid, not having great internet, didn't have the internet service, but we didn't have lights to burn as bright as the sunlight, so we had to go to daylight savings time. We had to harvest the crops in the field. The kids had to help the parents harvest the crops in the farms, so we had longer summer breaks. So now that we don't do as much agriculture as we once did, now that we have the lights that we need, so this morning school shift, can it be split up into 2 shifts? This 3 months off, can we have 3 periods of 1 month off during the year to help people get the mental break that they need? I mean, we got to start thinking outside the box and quit thinking that, why are we doing, we talk about that old story where they shaved 3 inches off the top of the turkey, and everybody did it each generation. Come to find out, the great grandmother was doing it because the stove was too small.
And that wasn't a turkey, Doc. That was a roast that they used to shave. I don't think they shaved.
Well, I heard of the turkey. You heard of the roast. So you had your roast. To me, it was a turkey. To you, it was a roast.
But you're right. It was because it didn't have a pan big enough for it to fit in.
Or the stove wasn't big enough. So you heard the pan wasn't big enough. I heard the stove. But at the end of the day, the moral of the story was it went about 3 or 4 generations. And everybody assumed they knew why they were doing it, or it's to make it more juicy.
Or did it because the other person, they just did it because that's the way they saw it.
And that's the way our school system is. Our school system hasn't been changed since my antiquated era of going through elementary school, and the kids are learning different now. You got these iPads and laptops and computers, so adapt to the minds of the kids that we're teaching, and then adapt to the times. As far as you got to quit sticking to this square wheel when we got a wheel with air in it now.
Right,
You know,
yeah.
start time to move ahead.
Well, I think that is a problem that's in the system too. That the education system have not caught up with our children. They learning at a much faster pace even than we did. There,
Yeah.
you know. I have some grandchildren there, and they just amaze me at their age. You know, we got our little granddaughter. We said she just a woman in a child body, you know, because what she's able to articulate and to communicate, and how well she's able to communicate. You say, hey, this child, she's too young to know all of this. But it's that they learn at a faster pace, and we do have to adapt the system to that. There's programs and all that especially with the TV, because you do have choices now. You don't have to just let your children just flip through the channel. They usually get this when they get a little curious when they start.
Channels.
But there's programs especially for the young children that they can get into that we adults we be singing it along with them. Now I know there's a few programs that we let our grandchildren watch, and it's called Coco Melon. And I had never heard of what a Coco Melon, but got me right saying Coco Melon. And many of the parents out there, you know what I'm talking about when we talk about Coco Melon. They got so many different series, and that child picks it up. And there, you want to say, well, I knew you listened to it, but I didn't know you got it like you getting it.
When
So-
the same child that picked up Coco Melon so quickly, they would label them learning disabled because they're trying to teach them the way I learned
Right. Mhm.
back in the old days. And the problem is, like I said, the system, and that's where I get a little bit upset at my public school system and saying you're dropping the ball.
Right.
If the child can pick up on different avenues of learning with these 3,000 TV programs, then you got to change the school system to fit the child.
Right.
Quit trying to change the child, or quit trying to teach to the test, and teach a way where the children can learn the products and programs they can learn. They will have a much better child, much better experience.
And I think that would help out a whole lot, Doc, there in that, and we'll continue this as we now let's take a commercial break and come right back to finish up this subject.
You signed your insurance check. If I make more than you, ask the lawyer to negotiate. You were the victim of 476 pain.
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that I would never be able to get over it and that my kids wouldn't have a father. I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. For the longest time, fear held me back from ultimately being who I wanted to. I had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
As your chiropractor, when you sign your check from the insurance company, if I make more than you, the victim, ask your lawyer to negotiate with me. You were hurt, we got you better. I don't want you to feel victimized twice. 476 pain.
All right, welcome back. Well, we're talking about our teachers in mainly the public school system, and how there seemed to be a lack of having enough teachers to teach. We're trying to see how can we make this system better. What can we do? What can we do as parents? What can we do as teachers to make this? What can we do to reorganize our system of education to make this a better education system? And Doc, I think you hit on some important points before we took the commercial there, is we're trying to teach an old way, and the children are more advanced than the older way.
Put new wine in the old skin.
Yeah, right, exactly. New. That's how I think they referred to it in some scripture there. Putting old wine. I never did understand that, by the way, but
New wine, old
new
skin.
wine in the old skin.
Well, understand the old skin has cracks in it and dries out. Wine, when you have a vessel, a bowl or something made out of skin, it's perfect when it's freshly dried or when it's freshly being used. But over years, it's going to develop cracks, so it's going to leak.
Oh, so you got a leak.
So if you got new wine, if you continue to put new wine in the old skin is going to let it leak out.
Leak out, okay.
So we put new wine, and the child's mind is a new wine into the old way of teaching. And we got to come up with a better way of approach to teaching. We're teaching
well,
the
I agree.
same message.
I
We're
agree.
teaching ABCs, but we got to do it a different way. We can't do it the way our grandfathers and our fathers and our great-grandfathers learned. And all we got to do is look at history. When our great-great-grandfathers came through, that maybe born in 1900s or whatnot, did they have the same school system we had?
Right.
Of course not. They had one room with K through 12, and there was no K, it was 1 through 12. And at some parts, in some parts of the world, it's still 1 through 8. You get 8 grades of 8 years of teaching, and then you're out to earn a living. But we've come a long way from the 1900s, but somehow we got stuck in the 1960s. Our school system that we use today could be attributed to, or could be said started around the 1950s or 60s, or maybe even the 40s, but we've got to do a lot better than that. I mean, my goodness, we're in 2022, 2023, and teaching like we're in 1960.
Yeah. Well, you're right. And there seems to be a big difference between public schools and private schools today. And I'm sure there's improvements can be used in both, but nowadays people are spending a lot of money for the education of their young children here because they see this deficiency in the education in public schools. Now, of course, if it was being offered like that in the public school, nobody would want to be spending. Sometimes I hear they're spending $12,000, $15,000, $20,000 a year for grade school children in order to go to school there. So we do have to look at this our system here and make sure that we're getting the best out of it.
And we're both products of public school system. Did you go to private school?
No, I didn't. I didn't even know there was a thing as private school when I was going to school.
So I would say that I don't know anybody who went to private school during our era, during our time, as being better than we are, more educated, more smart. So I would say that the public school system can put out a good product. It's just that we have to pay attention to the changing.
You're right. Exactly.
And pay attention to the fact, like you said, that our kids are. When we were going to school, I don't think we picked up algebra and calculus in the younger grades. Now we're picking up algebra in grade school. That was a high school subject 20, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. But now it's an elementary subject. So our minds are changing. Things are we are developing, and technology is just over the top. You have this teacher standing in front of the classroom with 30, 40, 60 kids in the desk. That's even antiquated. Right. Should we have round tables? Should we have the desk? Should we have smart boards? Should we have laptops, iPads? Should we have virtual goggles on? Right. I mean, there's so many other ways to learn that this way of sitting people up like they're at a theater is crazy. And then when you go to places like the Beau Rivage, you notice how in the 60s and the 50s, things were set up like Sanger Theater. All little rows of chairs and whatnot. But when you go to the Beau Rivage and newer places, you got different seating arrangements. And when you go to even the cruise ships, when you go there, they got a few of the same seats, but then as it tiers up, you got some round seats over here, because the studies have been done about the people's attention span and about the people being able to see how better to design it.
Right, yeah.
How better to make it more comfortable. You don't sit there for 2 hours.
And I don't think we have given that kind of attention to education that we need to give to education. Because we haven't made those type of changes yet. And like you say, because I don't think it's just the classroom. For years it went on the classroom size. You reduce the size, then you make a better student. But that hadn't proven.
I think that. But think about this: when they went to the movies 20, 30 years ago, how were the movie seats?
Right.
And when you go to movies today, how are the movie seats?
They're very different. I agree.
So why are the classroom seats the same? Why would I go to a high school or a college? It looks like the seat I sat in.
Right, exactly. You
gotta be there 45 minutes, an hour, in this hard chair.
Right, exactly.
Is that conducive to learning in this environment? Whereas if I go watch a movie or go look at a show or go look at anything, but all the other places have these fancier seats and better, just the amenities it just makes it more relaxing. Right. So now the brain can receive.
Right. And the other thing that in the public education was happening is now they bringing in teachers with even less quality of the teachers that's leaving the system, which I don't see where that would do the improvement, and the that's going to be a bigger problem. And then they're increasing the class size on them, and so we got a situation that we're going to need to look at either now or in the future, because the children are our future, and if we don't teach them well, they won't be able to lead the way.
Well, someone's going to lead, and if
So,
not
yeah,
us, it
it
may
will
be
be-
maybe China or Russia.
yeah.
Somebody's going to lead. So
Yes.
if you want our children to lead the way,
Right,
let's
exactly.
teach them the way so they can lead the way.
They can. And to our teachers out there, we encourage you. We know what you're going through. Our hearts go out to you. I just say stay in the fight. Do the best you can. And hopefully you'll get some support from the community and from the parents and from the system, because we know what you have to go through.
Yeah, and the hopefully this teacher, I think in Georgia or Alabama, that's having a problem with the school system, is an elementary teacher, and she said she was forced to give the kids a passing grade. And she said in her days that the kids had to earn a passing grade. I think when you just push a kid ahead without giving them what they earned, it just sets the kid up for failure.
Well, you're right.
When I right around that, I got a little bit upset when I was riding around about 10 o'clock one morning. I saw kids sort of
Out of school.
about 9:30 or 10 o'clock. It's time that it wasn't lunchtime. It was after the bell had rung. It seemed like they were trying to escape from the school campus, like they checked in and they were trying to
Check out.
find somewhere to go hide. But I think, and these kids could be the smartest kids, it's just that they're not inspired or don't have the right motivation. Threats is not going to make it happen. We're going to have to find a way to reach that mind
Right.
of the child. And if you're chosen to be an educator or leader, such as a school board commissioner, it's not the teacher's fault here. It's the fault of the administrators, and those administrators, those
Right.
commissioners need to do a better job at coming up with innovative ways to help our children. And one thing you can look at is many of you commissioners who are up in age and whatnot, think about when you went to school, and if it's the same way, ask yourself, is this the best we can do for our children?
Right. And then on that, which is another subject we have to look at, I think we made a mistake when we started trying to label our children, and especially the bad labels that we gave them. We used to call them the ones that were smart. We called them geniuses, which didn't do as much harm as the one when we start calling them, saying you got a learning disability. Here's a child, a normal child with a normal brain function, but we saying they got a learning disability. Now we know we all, as human beings, we like some things better than we like others. Some things we just dislike. But when you start telling a child, especially at that age before he is really formed, that they got a learning disability and they believe that, then that creates a whole nother problem for the system and for the child.
Yeah, and are these learning disabilities our failure to find a way to teach this child who may look at things a little differently? I was one of those children that could have been easily labeled because when you go to schools you're different than many of the other students there, you look at things differently, and people have to understand that. School board commissioners need to look at that as well. When you take a couple of schools and put them together, you took Blount High School and put it into a different community, then some of the kids, this is high school, is going to be better to adapt. When you do it with smaller kids, we have different ways of looking at things from different families, from where we're raised, and it's not that the child's a learning disability. You put him in a different environment that he's not accustomed to, if you will, and he's got to learn those methods, or you have to modify and try to be inclusive to everybody.
Well, Doc, I think it's been an interesting subject that we talked about today, but unfortunately, we're out of time this week, but we will be back next week with another Rise and Shine. See you then.